Was it your new place?
Well, I am actually visiting Oklahoma City. CannaCon is this week. So tomorrow, Thursday, May 27th, and then Friday, May 28th, there's CannaCon in Oklahoma. So I thought it was a good opportunity to see how this market is developing, meet some people in Oklahoma, and yeah, try to talk with some laboratories here.
Oh, cool.
And good morning, Jake.
Hey, how's it going?
Going great. Welcome to the Cannabis Data Science Meetup group.
Nice to meet you both. So it's great to be here.
Well, just to introduce myself, so my name is Keegan. My background, I started working as an analyst at a cannabis testing laboratory, and then I found there were a lot of rooms for improvement. So, for example, there's data entry that needed to be automated, certificates needed to be created easy, and then just, a website and client portal. And so, as a software developer, I realized there's a lot of laboratories that need software solutions. So I launched Cannalytics, a company to help provide software solutions to laboratories to make cannabis testing simple and easy.
Oh,
because I've got a lot of knowledge, so I may as well share what I've learned. Oh, and then I guess I'll let Charles and yourself introduce yourselves to each other.
Charles, I think you were here first. I could go ahead if you want to.
So yeah, I've like 27 years of software development experience, and I'm moving into like data science and machine learning now. This has just been this group has some really good data to explore and do some interesting things with, and so I've been working on that. I've been working on some Kaggle competitions.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
How about yourself, Jake? How did you hear about the group? And
I guess it's kind of two factors. So I've been interested in, I think cannabis. I've been interested in cannabis. I think from like I do like stock analytics data, like investing analytics, and cannabis. It's not an industry I'm current, but it's one of like two industries I'm like really looking at. But I'm also just interested in data science generally. So like that piece. And then the second thing is what I do most of my time is not professionally, but I'm building this like data science tool, and I'm sort of trying to explore what industries it could be interesting in. And we've had like one or two people that I've just met with recently who were doing like analytics in the cannabis or at cannabis companies, I believe. And so I thought, maybe this would be cool people to meet here in that space as well.
That's awesome. If you're open to talk about it, I would love to hear about the data science tool you're building.
Yeah, if you want, if you guys want to try it out, I could. If you want to.
Well, honestly, today was going to be a bit more of an open day, so I'm traveling to Oklahoma City to visit CannaCon. So I haven't had as much time to prepare things this week as I normally do. So the whole point of the group is to let everybody have a chance to share. So yes, if you want, it would be.
Yeah, why don't I? What I'll do here, that'd be cool, really cool actually. Why don't I? I'll send you both a link. So I have a hosted version and a local version, but as I'm sure you're aware, like downloading it's Python tool. So like downloading Python packages is a brutal process. So I'll just send you both this hosted version. And if you want to, you can just log in there. Oh, are you still there? I think you might have froze.
Sorry, I just had to get reconnected real quick.
Oh, no worries. So if you go to that link that I just sent, it's a Jupyter Hub link. So if you essentially, it's like a hosted Jupyter notebook essentially, or Jupyter Lab really. You have to put your email in to access it, but you're welcome to put in like a fake email if you don't want to put in a real email. I understand. And then, oh, sweet, yeah, I can sort of guide you through.
Yes, so I'm just going to share my screen that way.
Okay, cool.
So just a heads up, so we are recording, so that way people.
Oh yeah, no worries at all.
No,
totally cool. If anything, if more people get to see it, that's cool. How long have you been running this group?
So the data science group kicked off in February this year. So I think our first meetup was February 24th or 26th.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
And interesting. So
I'll give a little background. So what it is it's a visual. It's supposed to be like a visual Python representation, and sort of visualizing Python as a spreadsheet. So we'd imagine everything you'll do in the spreadsheet will generate the equivalent Python for you. So like if you run this cell right here, that first cell. Yeah, you can just run it. That should do it. You're gonna have to put your email in again. But I sort of just I just do this to hopefully be able to get in touch with people.
just to formally.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. We're not taking anything, but oh, you can just put like NA here. This is I kind of have this question here for like self-service users, but obviously since we're on a call, you're welcome to do that. Cool. Oh, sweet. I didn't know you could do that. That's awesome. So this is the tool. So essentially, are you a Python user at all?
Oh, definitely. Both Charles and I, love Python. So I fell in love with Python 5-6 years ago.
Nice.
And it's my weapon of choice. And so I'm fascinated by this. So I've done a little work. So this looks almost like something you would build like with PyQt, but obviously it's running here in the browser. So honestly, I'm kind of curious how you built this, if that's something you're willing to share, but it also looks like a cool tool.
Yeah, I have a co-creator is maybe a better word, who I made this with. It's actually my twin brother. So essentially it's a Python backend. It might be easier to explain once I show you a little bit of the functionality. So let's import a data set really quick. If you click the import button, and then you can add file from your folder.
Can we drag and drop here?
So you can, because you're on the hosted version, you have to like sort of upload your file to the system first, and then you can import it into the sheet with that button we just clicked. If you're on a local version, then you can just sort of, you're in your local files, you can connect to whatever files you want. But if you want to go back and click that button again, so just add file from current folder, that's just gonna put in our sort of the demo data airport pets. And I'll just show you. So let's do you can close that little window on the right there. The one you had the import window, you can close that.
This one?
No, if you scroll up, where it says import CSV, you can close that, and then now so essentially the gist of it is it's a spreadsheet, and everything you do in the spreadsheet is going to generate the equivalent code for you. So if you filter, try applying a filter to a column like.
Question: Is it possible to import our own data set here real quick, or?
Yeah, totally, for sure. Also, one of two ways to do it. One is if you have it as like a CSV file, you could just upload it in the side here. Okay, sweet. So yeah.
Because essentially, we're just putting together some data here.
Yeah, totally. So I think the best way. Did you click the upload button yet, or are you just in your local file?
Let me just get some data for you real quick.
Yeah, for sure. No.
And then how do we upload data?
So yeah, so you want, yeah, exactly. Click that button there, select your data. And then now, so if we, let's rerun that top, oh, was that, did you upload it as a CSV?
It was an Excel. Does it need to be a CSV?
Yes, I mean, it doesn't have to be, but if you want to do it sort of through the UI, it has to be a CSV. You can, the other thing you can do is you can import any data frame into Mito just by putting it as the argument to the Mito sheet.sheet call. So for example, if you're working in a notebook and you have data frames you're working with and you want to quickly call those in, you can do that. Cool. So now that top cell in the notebook where we called the Mito sheet, if you want to run that again, and then you click the import button, you should be able to select your file.
But I think this is
that's the wrong data. But if you click
this.
There you go. Now you'll see it.
Cool.
You can close that. It's a little tutorial.
Interesting. So,
and if you want to delete that original data,
well, yeah, because this is
yeah, you can see this little drop down next to where it says airport pets at the bottom. You can just click delete.
Because yes, so we're all about working with actual data here. So
I get it. Yeah,
so
no, I appreciate
we just have
it.
licensee data here.
I'm tired of doing the same demo data, so this is great.
Okay.
But so yeah, let me just show you maybe like a few things, and I'd just love to hear your thoughts, or if you have thoughts on how you might want to play with it, that'd be cool. For example, so let's do like a filter, for example. So if we go to the top, or if we go to the sheet, and then if you click, so it's the same feel as a spreadsheet, or it's aspiring to be that. So for every column, there's that little filter icon next to it. So if you want to filter, so like a good example here, yeah, we can add a filter. See, we have that NaN value. This is kind of useful. If you want, one of the filter conditions is you can do, yeah, you can filter to a city, or you could filter like out null values by doing is not empty at the, which was at the bottom, I think, the last option. And then you got rid of your null values. And then if you scroll down to below the, yeah, you'll see. So this is code we're generating. So that final step, step 4, that is the equivalent code for dropping the null values from the column.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, so we generate the equivalent code for each edit, and it kind of goes back to why I made the tool, which is like I think you mentioned like was it 5 or 6 years ago you started learning Python. Like I started doing Python maybe like 2 years ago, and I just found that like memorizing the syntax and getting the syntax right all the time was just like such a, maybe it just wasn't my skill set, but it was just such a learning curve for me. So I kind of wanted with my brother like make a way to make Python more accessible, essentially.
Question: do we need Mito sheet, or is this just all on pandas?
So that's a good question. So everything you have right there is pandas. Where you will need Mito sheet, there's one specific place, and it's the reason we have that. Is if you scroll up, if you do, so what you can do like spreadsheet formulas in the sheet. So like if you want to try adding a column, for example. So you can just click add column button in the toolbar at the top. And then in there, you could use do a formula that's like normal spreadsheet syntax. So if you want to use like a concat function that you would do in Excel, you could do it in there and sort of concat the two. So just write concat, and you'll see the suggestion pop up.
How do you? Oh.
There you go. And then you can select the columns you want.
Ideally, I'm trying to, like, let's say.
Oh, yeah. I don't know why it wasn't working like that before. Maybe if you try if you close that menu on the side, I think it might make it a little easier. That A where it says AB, if you close that. Yeah. It also, yeah, if you know the names of your columns, like it'll suggest it to you. We use this thing called what's it called QGrid, which is like AG grid, which is like it's a JavaScript like table library essentially, and they kind of help us like get a lot of these features out of the box, which is cool. But yeah, so there's your and if you wanted to put like cool. And so yeah, so it's actually kind of what you're doing right now is like formatting is like one of the main uses I think people use this for, and then you can rename it. But then to your question about like, can you just like copy this code into any other environment? You can, except for when you use something like, where do we have it? Scroll down to the bottom. Exactly. For that function, it is pandas that we're using, but it's like, we had to use a complex combination of pandas to like get that to work. So we sort of just wrapped it in our own function. But I saw you opening Spider. Were you about to try and copy this into Spider?
Essentially, yes.
That'd be cool. I actually haven't done a ton of testing with that, so it'd be interesting to see how that goes. What I'm thinking is like the functions, you don't need the UI. The UI won't pop up in Spider, or at least it won't work well. But I'm thinking if you also copy the Mito package into Spider, the syntax might actually work still. We haven't done a lot of testing on that, which would be interesting.
Well, I'll need to. This your project?
Yes. What are you looking to do the local install?
I believe so, right? Because I'll need Mito to.
Yeah. You will. So this is the thing, it's the local install. Yeah, it should work. You just the thing, the way Mito works is the back end, and then there's the front end, which is a Jupyter Lab extension. But I think you probably, if you actually don't think you'll have to even download the extension part, just install the package, you should be fine. So yeah, that'd be cool if you want to try that.
And I guess your principal audiences are data scientists, huh?
I think it definitely is. I'm definitely doing a lot of thinking right now about like trying to specify for like a more specific audience. But yeah, certainly right now I think it's like data scientists who are like beginner to intermediate at Python. I'd say like the lowest level is like a lot of people think like, oh, this would be a good learning tool, and I see that, but I disagree, because I think it wouldn't let you it wouldn't make you become better at Python. Like it would just make you be able to do some of the things you would want to do in Python more quickly. So I think it's actually better for like someone who's like 6 months to like 3 years experience with Python, and they know what they want to do and they know how it works, but they're tired of constantly going to Stack Overflow or like Googling syntax. It's just easier to do some things very quickly. And here, like a pivot table, for example, pivoting in Pandas is like a pretty common thing to do, but I've talked to like even really advanced data scientists who just like never remember the Pandas pivot syntax, and they're constantly Googling that. And so our tool is like, quickly do your pivot table in our sheet. And so one is like the ability to just generate the syntax more quickly. And then two is just the visual aspect. A lot of people just like, looking at their data during their analysis more in a more dynamic way than just like printing out a data frame. which I think is cool. That's definitely one of the things I like about it. Did the package install?
We're still installing here.
Yeah, see, that's the thing is like it's installing Plotly, which is like for graphing, but like you're not going to use graphing if you're not using the front end. So that's kind of annoying.
How about you, Charles? Do you have thoughts so far or comments?
No, this is really interesting. This is, you know, you might be targeting people who use like, was it Power BI?
Yeah,
like
I see that.
people who do data science stuff but don't really know programming. That would be, you know, I think that would be a good audience.
That's interesting. Yeah. What do you think about the cannabis space? So I think one of my interests is cannabis. Obviously, it's like, you know, one from an investing standpoint, and the two from like a standpoint of this tool maybe is like a lot of places I've seen people enjoy the tool is like these like transitional industries where it's like they're typically using things like Excel, more analog tools, and because of like they have much larger data sizes or they want to do more advanced analyses now, they're transitioning to Python. So I've seen that in like finance a little bit, like pharma, like bio research. I'm seeing that. Do you think that cannabis is a place where, you know, there is a push to get these like non-technical people more technical?
Well, what I have heard is people do want a hold of their data and to be able to analyze it. And so that's, you know, something that I'm not sure if it's their design or, you know, a lot of people kind of are holding data hostage these days. So it seems, well, that's what I've heard from the industry. So it seems like people are having a hard time getting their data out of whatever program they have it in. So if they just want to do statistics on their own. I just kind of heard that just word of mouth yesterday. So I think there is a demand for just people to explore their own data, right? So I think, you know, people are becoming increasingly more sophisticated. And so, yeah, people want to get a hold of their data and, you know, look at it themselves.
Yeah.
What about you, Charles? In your work as a data scientist, do you think people are wanting to get a hold of their data more and more these days, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm not involved in the cannabis industry, so I can't speak to that. But there are a lot of people, that that do data analysis, but don't really know like Python or any sort of programming languages. And again, they use tools like they use Excel, they use Power BI, they understand how to use those things. So this would be kind of good for people who aren't as technical but still do a lot of data analysis. So my other question is, how large of a data set have you tried this on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm confident that it will so the idea is that what you're doing is really in the sheet, you're editing a data frame. So if you either pass in a data frame as an argument and that'll populate the sheet, or if you're passing in a CSV, the first thing it automatically does is turn your CSV into a data frame. So as long as you can fit the data frame, you can fit as long as you can fit that set into a data frame, which I think the most we've done is like 15 million rows. I'm not sure how many columns that was, so it's more about obviously the area, but then I think it's definitely usable and of course way faster than doing it in other visual tools like Excel, for example. Excel is just like brutally slow, but then there's also like it's actually a really whole space of like data science I'm not too familiar with. It's like these people doing like, I think it's like PySpark, where it's like they have too much data. It's like they can't even fit in data frames. It's this whole other dimension of data science that I really am not too experienced in. And so I think we're more focused on this, like, I think the people who have these a bit more smaller data sets maybe are doing more like exploratory data analysis to start. A smaller could still, smaller meaning still 5 million rows potentially. But so yeah, we're definitely not there for like huge productionized machine learning models for like insurance companies and stuff like that. Where it's just like crazy terabytes of data.
Well, if you want, I just had started to do this brief analysis on comparing Eastern and Western Washington rainfall. So that effect on cannabis yields. So if you want, could I show you that brief analysis and see if that may be something that could be recreated in your tool or with your tool?
Would you want to try uploading that into like just try doing it in the tool or
yes.
whatever you want to do?
Yes. So here, why don't I run through it real quick and then we can try it with your program.
Sweet, that'd be awesome.
So, and that way we can try to replicate the results. So, just a brief overview. Essentially, we're just doing sort of a difference in difference. So just kind of comparing one region to the next. And so essentially, we're just seeing, okay, it looks like there's quite a different climate in these counties compared to these counties. So over here, it looks wet and incredibly wet. And then over here, it's much drier. And so does that have any effect on cannabis yields? Is everybody doing things inside in temperature and humidity controlled rooms? And it may not have any effect whatsoever, or maybe people over here are having a hard time keeping their crops cool. Who knows? So we actually will have to do some statistics to see if there's any fundamental difference in the cannabis yields. So it's not actually that tricky of an analysis here, but it's pretty short, really. So essentially, we're just going to use dummy variables. So, 1 if you're in Eastern Washington, 0 if you're in Western Washington. Or I forget which exactly. So yeah, 1 if you're in Eastern Washington, 0 if you're in Western Washington. And so the past few weeks, we've been working with lab result data in Washington State, as well as earlier here in, also, what is the name of your program?
Called Mito.
Mito. So in Mito, we have already read in the licensees, and so we're joining that data with the lab results.
Cool.
Okay, so.
And you're reading this from an Excel file? Like that's the basis? Seems
Can
like
you say that one more time, please?
You're reading this from an Excel file? I think I saw a line in there that said read Excel.
Yes, I think I may have moved this file. So 1 second, and I am going to make a. Let me pause this for 1 second, and I'm going to.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
Oh, hold on. I almost forgot Paul here. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good.
Oh, excellent. So you actually joined at a good time because I'm sort of getting the data connected here. So we've got Jake today who's building a data science tool, and we're using it to explore some of the cannabis data we're working with.
Oh, very cool.
Nice to meet you, Paul.
How you doing, Jake?
Doing well. Where are you located?
Southeast Michigan. Where are you?
Cool. I'm normally in Philadelphia. I'm actually at the Jersey Shore right now, though.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So what we're doing, Paul, so this is sort of merging both tools. We're basically doing an analysis on Eastern versus Western Washington lab results. So just a simple analysis just to demonstrate working with the data.
Is it kind of like an A/B test or something, or?
Essentially, so this was just sort of an example of merging the data sets and just running a regression.
Right on.
But I'm just getting the data pulled up here real quick.
And while you're doing that, I just wanted to, Charles, thanks again for helping me out this week. I appreciate it. I haven't had a chance to get into the Parquet files yet, but I'm still I'm still trying to use PowerShell to get some of the conversions over, and it seems to be working. It takes a long time, though.
Yes, it's converting it in pandas was, it was slow going. It was very slow going.
Pretty painful.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I was gonna, I thought about, I don't know a lot about R, but I thought about trying to do some of this analysis in R and thinking, oh, well, maybe that would be better. But you're running into the same problems I'm running into. So
yeah. And after you were mentioning, in Python, what is the name of the chunking application you referred to?
Oh, Dask.
Dask, which I don't know anything about, but within R, there was a library that does essentially, actually it's like 3 libraries. I've tried 2 of them. And those 2 didn't work, but this other one seems to be kind of promising, where it just essentially takes the data and chunks it out into files and it kind of distributes them, and you do some parallel processing on it. So I'm going to give that a whirl and see what happens, and just test it out.
Cool.
Okay,
so sorry about that.
Oh, no, I can focus now. So no, that's good. And I've read your emails or your messages, and that you're working to get the UTF-16 converted to UTF-8. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you've got a solution.
Yeah, it's kind of it's essentially just using PowerShell and run a quick, well, it's not a quick script, run a small script, and then just chunks through the whole file, and then gives me a UTF-8 TSV file on the other side. But then that's another script I can run that will convert the TSV to CSV. And then I've got the full CSV file. And then what I've been doing is I'm in the process of doing this right now, is uploading them to Google Cloud with the free instance that I've got right now. And then just to get some of these larger files up there to see if this tests out the process, and then run some small queries against them. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Excellent work. So just to show just a demonstration of this data to Jake, and just some statistics that I was beginning to tinker on. So always start with a question. So my question was, does rainfall, so does the amount of moisture affect the cannabinoid results? And so I kind of wanted to look at all of the different results. Maybe some fail more for moisture content. Maybe the water activity is higher on some than the others. So the way Washington is set up, it works well for essentially just a quick and simple dummy variable analysis. So, so we're just going to get.
Oh,
I think we just lost him.
yeah.
Hey, Keegan, I don't know if you can hear us, but you froze up.
At least it's a nice image to look at. in the meantime.
He's got his power fist going, so that's good.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are, Keegan. You came back.
Okay, but my apologies. So I actually should let you know, Jake. So I am working at the Oklahoma City Library.
Oh, cool.
I'm in Oklahoma City for CannaCon tomorrow and Friday.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, going to, be, meeting people in the cannabis industry here, see what their challenges are, how things are going, how the market's developing.
That's really cool.
So, okay, so back to the work here, Eastern Western Washington. What I'm doing here is just reading in the lab result data and the licensee data, and then merging it. And so, for example, so those are the variables for licensees, and we can merge these with the licensee's global ID and then the lab result for MME ID. So you can look at the data points, but that way we can merge them. And then we have a lot of data points for this one lab result. So now we have, this is a lab result here. It is with this piece of inventory. So we could actually look up the inventory at this point and get even more data points. For now, our analysis doesn't need those data points, but in the future, we'll want to just get all the data points that we can together. And then essentially what we've done here is just added on the licensee's data. So now we know, okay, this licensee is in Bellingham, Washington, and they're in Whatcom County. So now it's pretty easy just to create a dummy variable if they're in Eastern or Western Washington. Pandas has tricks for creating dummy variables, but I actually just wrote a quick script, just wrote a quick little loop here just to create that.
Can I jump in for a sec?
Yes.
So I think what's interesting there is you wrote that little script there, you said, it's an if statement essentially. So what you would do in like my tool is you would just use you would just make a new column, and then you could do an if statement in that column, just like if this, that, if X 1, if Y 0. It's kind of interesting.
Yes, and so Paul, this is Jake's tool, and so this is sort of adds a user interface into a Python code generator.
Okay.
So this would be.
It's called Mito Sheet.
Yeah, here I'll put some links in the chat.
So, just for brevity's sake, I'll run through mine real quick. But then essentially, I see you would basically, create your dummy variable here, sort of Excel style, and then you'll have, the code automatically generated.
Yeah, totally. Which is cool.
So we've got that dummy variable now, and so so this is actually interesting. This is actually the first time I've calculated this statistic, but so this is an interesting statistic that maybe not a lot of people even know. So it looks like 62% of licensees are in Eastern Washington, and about 38% are in the other, or in Eastern Washington.
That's cool.
And so what you could do is, remember, I always say, well, I'm not sure if you've heard me say this, but what I say is you can get real interesting by just doing conditional averages. So if you just took the mean conditional on, okay, if it's a producer or a processor, you can now find out, okay, are there more producers in Western Washington or Eastern Washington? Because my, hypothesis is that there are a lot of retailers in Eastern Washington and a lot of cultivators in Western Washington. I wonder
what the implications would be on transportation for that.
Well, it depends on where the laboratory, there's a lot of factors. So you're right. So the people will end up, and that's the thing in Washington, is essentially transporting the cannabis from Western Washington to Eastern Washington, first to test it at a laboratory. There are some laboratories in Western Washington. And then to send it to all the retailers.
So just to understand the flow a little bit, because I'm new to this. So any grower there's some formality, they have to get it tested at a specific type of lab before they can sell it. They can't do any of that testing in-house.
Exactly. So they need to get their products tested at a third-party independent laboratory.
That's interesting. I wonder why. Yeah, that's interesting.
I think it's for, I'm just speculating. I'm new like you, but I would think it's for overlapping interests, right? Because you could probably cut a lot of corners. If you're a transporter and a producer, I wonder if some of the checks and balances would be kind of compromised by doing that.
Yeah, totally. It was interesting there's a way you could, I don't know. There's a way you could have it so you could do that testing in-house. You could potentially save a lot of money. I imagine it's the growers who are paying for that transportation.
Yeah, but they have a big problem with, people trying to fake results.
Right.
I mean, a lot of growers, were using a lot of pesticides and agents to stop mold, and and it wasn't a safe product to sell anymore. So that's why you have independent labs to do that kind of stuff.
Also, we should actually be careful with those statistics that I was calculating, because I was only reading in 10,000, and there are about 2 million lab results. So that is not even going to be close to accurate.
Yeah, you probably would do a random sample if you don't want to read it all in.
Quick question, Charles. Do you know how to read in a CSV with just a random number of samples?
No, not off the top of my head.
Yeah, but so we may just have to hedge this, but this is sort of just a demo of an analysis.
That's pretty cool. I mean, we were talking about this before, just the fact that you're going through this and answering some of those high-level stats questions gives you that baseline of understanding, right, of what the market's like and how the market operates too. So just having that information, you're gonna be way ahead of a lot of people.
Exactly. So my red flag was, so that's what you do when you're looking at data. You've got to look at the data because there could be some red flags. And so what my red flag was 100% of the cultivators are in Eastern Washington. And so that's just because I just read in the first 10,000 observations.
One thing that comes to mind as you're showing me this, and we talked about this a little bit last time, but like Washington, other states, they're in this kind of weird situation where they're trying to grow an industry, right? They're really trying to get it off the ground so they can get their tax money out of it. But they're also trying to rein it in enough to where, it's controlled and, people aren't getting sick from bad product or what have you, trying to mitigate the risks. So they're kind of this weird balancing act. But at some point I would imagine that they're going to have to do some auditing and compliance, like pretty stringent auditing and compliance checks, or also checks for if there's any way to check for what's the word I'm looking for? Come to me in a second. But to position yourself to where you can provide data that would help with auditing and compliance would probably be a pretty good strategic move.
That's interesting, because I think you're right. So, Leaf Data Systems is collecting all this data to just to look at it. Rule number one about data: look at the data. So you're right, and it's one of those things where, like I was saying, there's such a high demand for this and such a low supply. So Leaf Data Systems is probably trying to do their best to supply visualizations and reports and statistics, but they may be underwater, or there may be such a high demand they just can't, can't fill it. So you're right. So that's where other people in the industry can kind of help out. And so I want to give a shout out to Jim Mcrae. And so he is actually the person who originally provided this data set to us. And that's essentially what he does. He's sort of the canary in the coal mine. So the canary in the data mine. So he is digging around with cannabis data, essentially doing exactly what you're talking about. Just seeing if there's any oddities or just being an extra eye on data.
So who is Jim Mcrae? Is he with the state of Washington?
I think I'm not 100% sure the organization he's associated with, but he's a researcher in Washington. And he's done a lot of research on the cannabis industry.
Gotcha.
So you may be able to find him on LinkedIn. That would honestly be maybe the best way to get a hold of him. And I can share his LinkedIn.
I was just curious. So he's trying to, in a researchy kind of way, try to keep a pulse on the market and keep his eye open for things like compliance and that sort of thing.
Exactly. So like there's interesting things to look at. So one is just the total amount of sales per lab result, because some products just sell a lot and others don't, and then you just want to keep an eye on failure rates, just to make sure that there's not a significant. We should just be aware of a significant trend one way or the other. So, for example, just to give them a shout out. So, if you want a good example of someone who's sort of someone keeping their finger on the pulse, but they're doing it in California. So, they're just seeing, okay, how many things are being tested, and so they plot failure rates. So you can see that failure rates are going down over time, while the number of tests are going up. I think they may have, and this is, I think, one of their best contributions, is they actually show the seasonality in, I believe this is seasonality in failures. It may not necessarily be of cannabis. Oh, actually, no. this is pesticide use. Okay, so this is the analysis they've done that I think could be extended. So in California, they record the amount of pesticides that are used, over time, and it seems there's, a cyclical use of pesticides. I think it would be interesting to try to correlate pesticide use, with failure rates to see, if somebody's using pesticides, does that affect the failure rate?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But enough of that tangent. Sorry about that. But yes, so extra eye on the data. So we can actually use some statistics here to start answering some of these questions. So back to our original question of the day. Does rainfall have an effect on cannabinoid results? Hedge this, that this is not a random sample. This is just the first 10,000 lab results. So you'd want to actually repeat this analysis with all of the lab results, and then you'd actually get a better estimate of the effect. So hedge this, that this is just a demonstration of the statistics. It's not actually, representative of what we think the true estimates are.
So Keegan, you pulled out like the first 10,000 results. I was able to do the same sort of thing with the files that I have, but to look across the entire data set, do you have the capacity to do that yourself, or are you kind of constrained on how much data you can work with?
I could probably pull it off. I just haven't yet. Were you thinking that you may be able to do this analysis, or?
Well, right now, like I've been kind of complaining the last couple of meetings and leaning on your guys' expertise, but I'm still trying just to get the entire data sets in a usable kind of format, yes. And I'm getting there. But as soon as I get it up to the Google Cloud, running queries on this data is going to be really easy. Just running SQL queries on it. Of course, how much it's going to cost, I don't know yet. So I got to be careful of that. But if I get those things up in place, and it seems like they're intact, they're not corrupt, because I know that Charles, you're saying that like the inventories file you found to be corrupted somehow. So I'm just saying, if I can get it up there and they're in place, I'll let you know, and then maybe we can do something to kind of speed up some of your exploratory analysis a little bit.
Definitely. So how about this next week? I can focus, and then it seems that you're going to be focusing on this as well. Let's get this data usable, because that's the first step. I think we've sort of mocked out how we can do some analysis, but we've got to do our yak shaving, and so we're basically stuck right here where we need to get all this data read in, and Charles has come up with a couple of good solutions. I just need to spend time and implement them. So this next week, that's what I'll be focusing on, is getting this data usable, and then next week we can touch base again, and I'll send you messages throughout the week, and that will be essentially the next step in our data analysis journey.
Yeah, just so Jake knows, I'm actually just finished up in a master's in data science, and I'm getting ready to do my capstone project. So
cool.
I kind of lucked out and hooked up with the guys here, and I thought it would be kind of interesting to do a project around the cannabis industry, just because it's a novel data set, and you can apply, like Keegan was saying the first time I was talking to him that because it's a new data set, there's really good low hanging fruit here with some basic analysis. So that's my focus. And I have to actually try and get a data set together pretty quick because my project's due by the beginning of August. And there's a bunch of other stuff I got to do as well. But so my goal is to try and get this data in a usable format as soon as possible. And of course, whatever success I have, I'll share with you guys. And then we can all kind of pound on it.
Cool. If I sent a link in the chat, but the tool, it's of course free. If it's at all helpful to you in the process, definitely. I put the docs in the chat if you want to try it out.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Jake. I appreciate that.
Just to take it home real quick, and then we'll close out. Basically, we just ran a regression here of THC on Eastern Washington. So, you could interpret this coefficient as, the THC difference in Eastern Washington versus Western Washington. Keep in mind, we haven't read in all the data, but you would interpret this if you were confident that was about a 5% difference. But there were some red flags, R squared, and principally our R squared is a pretty big red flag. So Jake, this is essentially the final piece that would need to be sort of done in your program if possible. So we can get all the way through here, where we've created the dummy variable, and so that could take us all the way to there, and we could be content with that, and then just use stats models. Or if you're interested in doing future work, this may be something you would be interested in looking at, is just a way where you could run simple regressions.
Yeah, totally. That's definitely something I think I want to add for sure. We're sort of we're building it out. I think right now we have like the base functionality you need, which is like transformations and pivot tables and merging and filtering. And then I think the question from there is like, do we go more into like the visualization space or the statistical space or the modeling space, like machine learning space? Because obviously there's all these amazing packages we could try and develop this front end for. And so that's just kind of the crossroads we're at. But definitely something like that, like running a simple regression, like makes a little sense in the tool. But
you kind of hit the nail on the head, because we all agree that with data science, love it or hate it, you end up spending about 90% of your time or more, sometimes 99% of your time, just cleaning the data and getting it in form. And then, but that's the beauty of it, because you spend all this work and then all of a sudden your data set's actually manageable, and then all you have to do is run a regression. And if it's good, clean data and you have all the data points you need, often you can just do an ordinary least squares regression, and that'll be incredibly informative.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I definitely agree.
So,
Jake, Keegan has a bunch of data, and it'd be interesting for you to like try and load that into your program and see, because we've had a lot of problems with this data, and so if you're going to make it, if it's going to be something sort of like an easy to use kind of tool, these are the kind of problems people are going to run into. Yeah,
that'd be cool. Keegan, if you're up for it, I'd love I'd love to maybe just if you wanted to have like a 20-minute call sometime, we could maybe just try and go through some of this together, which would be cool.
Absolutely. And I also put the data in the chat, because sweet. I think Charles was right. Like, if you want a data set to really, what's the word? Crash test your program, that could be a good data set for you.
Okay, cool. Yes. If I want to reach out to you, is this like contact cannabis email? Is that good for you?
You can actually reach me at Keegan@canlytics.com.
Cool. I'll definitely do that. All right. Sweet.
Great. All right. Well, everyone, thank you for joining today. And we've got a big week ahead of data wrangling. So I'm excited. Paul's got a grin. Charles got a grin. So Jake, I'll look forward to talking with you. And
yeah, that'd be great.
Charles as well.
All right. Good talking, guys. Nice to meet you, Jake.
You as well. Have a good one, guys.
All right. Take care.
Have an awesome week.
You too.
Okay. All right. Bye.